Right, yeah, me now. Thank you. Hello. I want to know what is. Hello, can you guys hear me? Hi, all. Can you hear me? I just muted everybody. You can unmute yourself.
Yep, I can hear you. Is it gonna? It's still not letting me share my screen though.
All right, let me make you the host. I think I have to do that so you can share your screen.
Okay.
There you go.
Perfect. Thank you.
Let's just give it a couple of minutes to let people join. Then we can start. Yeah, I think we can start so that people join.
Great. Can everyone hear me? Just want to make sure.
Yeah, I can hear you. Some people are asking, they cannot seem to hear, but yeah, you can hear us now.
Awesome.
You were not talking. Yeah.
Okay. Should I kick it off? Can I go ahead and start?
Yeah. We usually start with a prayer, and then I'll have someone read your bio.
Yeah,
Then,
please go for it.
Let me see if any of my prayer guy is here. All right, let me just do it, and then we can start. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين صراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم اللهم أعوذ من فلاح شر ما خلق من شر غاسق شر من شر النفاثات ومن شر حاسد اللهم أعوذ بالناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر وسواس الناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من جنة الناس اللهم من كل كلمة نكره من أمر خير وتكره بسم الله كل كلمة من لازم لسان الرحمن الرحيم بشكر بلا كفر أنت بسم الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. I mean, Betty, can you unmute yourself? Yeah, you can start. So welcome to our 4th monthly webinar. It takes place the first Sunday of the month at 7 p.m. Eastern and 6 Central. And this is actually our first time doing something not related to religion, because we have, most of us here are college grad or college students or high school students. So we also want to help each other, and this is a good program. I personally attended a similar presentation by our with Tekil, which is Senegalese networking, and we might talk about it a little bit because I think it's interesting for you guys who might want to join. And from there, I just wanted her to come here and do the same thing because I think all of us can benefit from it because I did when I joined. So thank you again, Al, for being here. It's really a pleasure. Thanks for being here. And Betty, you can go ahead with her bio, then we can start, inshallah.
Assalamualaikum everyone. I hope you all are doing well. So I'm just gonna go ahead and introduce our guest today. And so welcome, Awa, and thank you so much for being here this evening with us. We appreciate you. Awa was born in Kaolack, Senegal, and raised in Harlem, New York. She has received her Bachelor of Arts from Bordeaux with a major in Africana Studies and a minor in French. Awa spent most of her post-Bordeaux career in the education sector doing work around diversity and inclusion initiatives, resource reallocation, data analysis and policy and program management, as well as evaluation and implementation. Extremely passionate about implementation. This has made her extremely passionate about program and project management, strategy development and implementation, as well as using data to inform and make strategic decisions. She later received her master's in education policy and social analysis from Columbia University, followed by an MBA from the Kelley School of Business at Indiana University. At Nakawa Beauty, an all-natural hair and skincare company based on traditional African recipes. She has joined Microsoft as an MBA intern the summer of 2017 as a part of the HR rotational program. Her first rotation in 2018 was in talent acquisition as a finance recruiter, followed by a role on global diversity and inclusion team as a project manager. She recently joined the global sales, marketing, and operations HR team as an HR business program manager, where she receives efficiency and agility across key HR teams and provides internal and external communication, programmatic and change management support to the corporate vice president and the leadership team. In her spare time, she enjoys running, trying new dessert recipes, and reading. So once again, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. If you can't hear me at any point, please say so in the chat. So I want to make this as informal as possible. So if for those of you who are part of Tech Hill, you heard this presentation before. For those of you who are new, this will be brand new. And even for those of you who joined the previous one, maybe you'll get some new gems out of this one. So
yeah, can I just say something for people who
yeah,
this time is here today? So if you have a question, write it down on the chat. That's where we take the questions. And I don't know how you want to do it, or if you want to wait until the end or after each portion, it's up to you.
yeah,
But,
we can do questions after each portion, or if you have questions throughout, feel free to put it in the chat. And I'm using a double screen, so if you see me turning, it's because I'm looking at my other monitor, which has the presentation, and then I have the chat in my other window. So do whatever is comfortable and easy for you all. If you want to wait till the end and ask your questions, you can do so, but I'm happy to like stop and pause throughout and answer questions as long as they're relevant to what's on the slides. And if there's a question that's asked and it's something that I know I'm going to cover later, I'll just let you know that. And if I forget, let me know, because I can be forgetful sometimes. But yeah, we'll make this pretty informal. We'll try to make it fun. I don't know how much fun talking about careers are, but we'll try our best to make it fun this evening for everyone.
all right, just if you have a question, just write it down and we will just take it whenever we can, inshallah.
Yeah.
Please, that's all. And we can start, inshallah. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Setting. All right, everyone. So I realized that she was reading my bio. It sounds so boring. Hopefully you all don't think that. So what we're going to do this evening is go over a couple of things. So the first thing that we're going to cover is just thinking about career planning. What does that mean? Why is it important, and why should you be thinking about it? Even if you're not, even if you're still in college, if you're about to graduate, if you're post-college, if you're in high school, I think some of the stuff that I'll cover here is relevant for everyone, regardless of where you're at in the different stages of your life. And so hopefully you too will find it helpful. Then we'll go over refining your resume. So I'll just go over some really, I would say like top tricks and things that you should focus on when it comes to your resume. And I'll give you a couple of examples on that. And then we'll spend some time at the end talking about LinkedIn and how you can leverage LinkedIn to help you with building up your brand, as well as even thinking further in if you're looking for jobs or trying to connect with people, how you can use your LinkedIn for that. And so Betty did a great job reading my bio. And so one thing that I've done is, and I continue to do, and this is very important for everyone's career, is really having a solid understanding of who you are and the things that you value, the things that you believe in. And so it goes actually beyond just, what's on your resume in regards to your education and your career or professional experience and your volunteer work. And so it's taking time to also do pretty much like a self-analysis and think about who you are as a person. And so for me, in terms of like my personal profile, as mentioned earlier, like I was born in Senegal, born in Kaolack, but I was raised in New York City. I'm actually no longer in Seattle, so I'm actually currently in New York City. So I moved out of Seattle about 2 months ago. And so back in New York City with my family in the interim. Other things about me when it comes to like my personal profile and things that you all should kind of, whether it's go do the test online, or figure out other ways to think about it, is I'm an INTJ, which means I'm actually more on the side of being an introvert. Even though I'm fine with giving presentations, I've facilitated large presentations for hundreds of people in the past, and I'm comfortable with doing that. But when it comes to my energy, when it comes to how I like to spend my time, I like small groups. I like spending time by myself. And so those are things I know about myself. And then insights is another training. I guess with the INTJ, a way you can actually take that test is to do Myers-Briggs. And so there is a free test you can take online, and it's pretty much just like a personality test in a sense, but it really does give you a good understanding of where you are on that scale and how you work and operate with other people and how you process information on your own. The other thing about me is my insights. And so insights is it's a training we have to do at Microsoft, and ultimately these colors each stand for something different. And so when it comes to red, it means I am pretty direct. I want you to give me the information that I need to do my job, and then you can kind of go on your way and just let me do my work. Blue means I'm super analytical, And so I like to know the information that I need. So whether that's the data in terms of the numbers or having as much information as possible, just making sure that that is something that I know is important to me. So my manager knows that as well. Green means wanting to like be involved. Like it's okay for me to be involved in things, but I'm fine not being involved. And then yellow is like, show me you care. Maybe this is because I grew up in New York. Like I don't really need people to show me you care. And maybe that's the New Yorker in me where it's like you kind of just go about your business, right? So taking those personality tests really does help you understand how you operate and how you navigate things. Then is education, and I'm not going to go over this because this was already covered, but understand where you are in terms of your education, work experience, being able to quickly kind of retell your story and tell people what your work experience is. Your skills and languages. This is actually really important and sometimes we forget. So as you think about every single job that you've held, even if it's as a cashier or waiting tables, there is something that you learn in every single job. Like I worked at a restaurant when I was between my freshman and sophomore year of college. And at that point, I learned really good customer service skills. I learned conflict management actually while working at a restaurant because you learn how to work with difficult customers. And so thinking about every single job you've held, every single volunteer opportunity you've held, really take time to kind of break down what are some of the skills that I've learned from that position and how do I make sure I talk about it in a way that it's relatable to whatever job that I'm applying to. And then lastly is hobbies. And when it comes to your career, when it comes to talking about who you are, it's important to also talk about your hobbies. So one of mine is running. I've done 2 marathons. I do 5Ks and 10Ks. It's just something that I find enjoyable, even though most people don't like running. Cooking, baking, skincare. I'm pretty obsessed with skincare, hence why I have a skincare company. And then reading, right? So just learning and growing and making sure that I'm soaking in as much information as possible. So I would actually encourage everyone to think about, okay, as you think about these buckets of personal profile, hobbies, education, skills and language, and work experience, what would you put under every single one of those? And then ask yourself, what did I learn and what's so important about these things that I'm putting there? So now let's jump into actual like career planning. So there's a couple of stages of career planning for everyone to keep in mind. The first part is self-discovery. And so that's why the slide that I just showed is so important because it really does help with understanding who am I and who am I in a holistic sense. And so we're all here, we're all Muslim. So that's a part of who you are. And then it's also digging deeper into what are the other parts of who I am that impacts the way that I make decisions, that impacts the things that I'm passionate about, and why is that important? The second stage is career goals. So really setting career goals by asking yourself, where do I want to be? So where do I want to be in 6 months? Where do I want to be in a year? Where do I want to be in 5 years? Where do I want to be in 10 years? I personally don't do beyond 10 years. And even saying where do I want to be in 10 years is something that I try not to do. I try to focus on, like, I do have these big long-term goals, but I do spend a lot of time focusing on, okay, in the next 6 months, what are some things that I can focus on and build skills on so that I can make sure I'm achieving something within that time frame. And the same thing with what can I achieve in the next year? What can I achieve in the next 5 years? And then you have career plan, your actual career plan. And so that's really thinking about, okay, how am I going to get there? What are the things that I need? Who are the people that are going to support me? Maybe it's the things that I need is, maybe I need to get a degree. Maybe I need to get a certificate. Maybe there's certain trainings that I need to do in order to get there. And then who can help me? So who are the people in your life or in your network, whether it's from college or your family or friends who can help you actually meet those career goals? And then lastly is making that move. And so, like when is the right time? Sometimes it feels like it's hard to tell when the right time to make a career move is, but typically, again, we're all Muslim here, so istihara and do other prayers to really understand, okay, how do I get to where I'm trying to be? And does this make sense? Is this the right time, or should I hold off until the next opportunity? And then, everything does happen for a reason. So really listening and taking time to process the information around you. with the self-discovery piece. And again, feel free to chime in if you have previous chat. I'm happy to answer questions as we go along. So with the who am I is pointing out your interests. So what are the things that are interesting to you outside of work? And so, as I mentioned earlier, some of mine are like skincare and self-care and running and cooking and baking. And so those are my interests, values. What are the things that are important to you in terms of values? So whether it's things related to your religion, if it's things related to your family, really thinking about what are those things that you value and where would you also put them on a scale, right? If you were to have a list of 10 things, how would you rate those things that you value? Skills. And so mentioned this earlier, but really thinking about what are the skills that you have, what are the capabilities that you have, and how does it align and how is it connected to maybe a job that you're looking for or a job that you want in the future. And if you don't have those skills, this is when you start to do the work of like, okay, now how do I start actually building out a plan to make sure I get those skills by a specific time. Preferences. So preferences, in a sense, deals with both your interests, your values, and your skills. But it's really, what are the things that you prefer? Do you prefer, right now, everyone's working from home, right? So do you prefer working at home or do you prefer being in the office? Do you prefer being in a large company versus a small company? Do you prefer a company that's more mission driven, or do you prefer a company that's just making money and it's a job that you have? But really figuring out what are your preferences, and there's nothing wrong with having one preference over another or seeing that your preference is different from someone else's. The thing to understand also is your preferences are going to change throughout your life. Like I think about, some of the things that I preferred or thought that I preferred in the past are very different from the things that I prefer now. So now the things that are important to me are work-life balance, having a job that, or a company that's mission driven, and making sure that I feel there's an alignment there. So a couple of questions to ask yourself when it comes to answering the question of who am I are, what is your superpower? And so this is a question that's actually asked in a lot of interviews. And it comes in the form of what are your strengths? And so sometimes they'll ask you, what is your superpower? Sometimes they'll ask you, what are your strengths? And so I would encourage everyone to figure out, okay, what are my top 3 strengths? What are the things that I know I am extremely good at? What are the things that if I think about my career, if I think about my education, are the things that I've consistently been good at, or I've been told by others that I'm good at? If you don't know what your superpower is, or you have a hard time figuring it out, ask someone who you work closely with, also ask a family member, and then ask a friend. And the reason why you ask these 3 different folks is because they'll each give you something different, and that could really help you understand and create a better, more holistic picture of what your superpowers are. And so examples of superpowers, one that I use a lot because I feel like it's kind of who I am is I am a system thinker. And so system thinking is, or someone who's a system thinker is someone who doesn't just look at something as one thing. I think about, how are all of these things that you're giving me, everything that you're telling me, how are they connected? Why are they connected? And does the connection make sense? And so that is one of my superpowers. Another one, and these are like fancy words that I'm using right now for these things, but they're fancy words that you can use. And if you use them in an interview, they're gonna be like, whoa. Another one is agile learner. So when you're an individual who's an agile learner, that means you are willing to move quickly and be flexible with your learning, which means if there's a situation where you don't know something, you're actually willing to go and do the work to learn and to learn quick and then go back and do the work. So again, those are just a couple of examples of superpowers. So it can be even more simplistic as, one of my superpowers is connecting people. So I know how to bring people together. I know how to make people get along. That's a superpower. Another one could easily be, if you're a data scientist, it's like I'm super analytical. I know how to analyze data and make sense of data and synthesize it in a way that makes sense. So really take time to figure out what your superpower is. Then what 3 words would others use to describe you? And so this goes back to what I had said previously of asking, a coworker, asking a family member, and asking a friend. to see what are the 3 words that they would use to describe you and to describe whether it's your work habits or just how you interact with folks. What bores you? We don't ask ourselves this question a lot. Sometimes we are in jobs that are boring, and sometimes we're in jobs that are boring and we just kind of have to suck it up and do the work because that's the stage in our life that we're at. But once you understand what is boring to you, what's not interesting to you, then you have to ask the question of, okay, what do I need to do to get to a place where I'm not bored? What do I need to do to get to a place where I'm actually in a job that's enjoyable, that I really like, and that's gonna kind of move things forward for me? What excites you? So what are the things that are exciting in your job? What are the things that, you know, so if someone is presenting on or someone is talking to you about, you like, you know, you're all ears, you're willing to listen, you're willing to engage in it, you're willing to even go and do research outside of work because it's something that you're really excited about and you want to learn more about. And so taking time to figure out what bores you and what excites you is extremely important. What values and morals do you hold firm to? And so going back to the previous slide of values, right? We all have different things that we value in our lives. We all have different morals and ways that we live our lives. But really having a solid understanding of, okay, what are those values? What are those morals? And is my company going to allow me to live those values and those morals? And sometimes, again, you are in situations where you may not get what you want 100% of the time because nothing's perfect. But at that point, then figuring out what are the things that I'm willing to compromise and what are the things that I'm not willing to compromise on. What are you curious about? What are the things that you're always asking questions about or you're always wanting to learn more about? So the more you ask yourself about your curiosities and the things that actually drive you to be interested in things, the better as well. So a couple of tests that I mentioned, one of them I mentioned earlier was Myers-Briggs. So that's one that I would recommend. Strength Finders is another one. And Strength Finders also, it actually has a book that helps you really have a good understanding of where you are in the different aspects of it. And then Insights is usually most companies do Insights, but I don't believe they do like individual tests, but if your company or your job is looking for a new tool to use to help people figure out their strengths, I would definitely encourage Insights. Are there any questions before I move on to the next slide? And you can either get off mute or if you're more comfortable using the chat, feel free to use that. And I'm also happy to, if you feel more comfortable sending me a private message, I'm willing to take that as well and keeping things anonymous.
Yeah, we don't have anything on the chat right now, but
Okay.
One thing I wanted to ask, there is a comment, this is great. So,
thank you, Aisha.
Yeah, she's right. So when you talked about the morals and the company values and stuff like that. So how do you determine that when you have a job offer or when you are applying to that? When is the right time to try to that before accepting a position or, before applying?
Yeah, I think the challenge with like the morals and values is sometimes you hear one thing, like when you're applying and you're talking to people before you start the job. And then when you get there and you're in the culture and you're seeing it and living it, you're like, oh, this is not the same as what people were telling me, because especially if folks want you to join their company, they're going to sell it to you however they can. But this is why it's so important to do your due diligence of talking to as many people as possible. I know for me, so I had interned at Microsoft, but even before I had accepted the internship, I spoke to probably at least like 6 people. Some of the folks were like alumni from my college who worked at the company or had worked there before. Others were people who currently worked at the company that I found on LinkedIn and saw that we had some kind of connection. And then others were just like a family friend that they knew someone who had worked or was currently working and was willing to talk to me. And the question that I typically ask when it comes to like the values and the morals is, I ask the person, like, is there anything about this company that you disagree with to your core that you would change if you could? And what that does is it makes that person think about like what's personally important to them, and does it not align with what the company is offering or what the story they're telling. And so it's hard though, because again, like sometimes you'll hear one thing before and then when you start, it's something different. But I will say, I think, especially now, given social media, given the internet, it is easy to find. And I mean, I would say just go on Twitter. It is very easy to learn about companies, because people, even internal to the company, have no shame and have no, like, they don't care about outing their company if there's something that's wrong. Like, they're more than happy to tell the world, like, this company is not doing this, this, and that. This is what they believe in. It doesn't align with X, Y, Z. And so you really have to do your research and talk to as many people as possible. And then once you're there, it's continuing to ask questions. And sometimes what happens also is it's not necessarily the company's values or morals, because the company may have one specific value or moral. It's sometimes a person in the company, or it's sometimes if it's not an individual, sometimes it's just a team, and you just maybe weren't so lucky and you ended up in a team that wasn't as great. And I've experienced that. I have friends who've experienced that as well. And so at that point, you have to kind of determine, like, is this really define the entire company, or is it this specific situation? Is it this specific team? So just really taking the time to slow down and understand that, I think, is key.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I remember I did the same thing. I mean, I didn't know people, but I did my research, and that's something that I told my brother. He's on the line, but when he was graduating, I told him, when you have an interview, go do your research about the company. Yeah. And when I didn't know anything about the company that I'm working for right now, I went on LinkedIn and I looked for people that works there, and anybody that seems like I can talk to them, I did. And I found somebody who was from Burkina Faso, trying to, African or Senegalese. And I talked to him, and he really told me great things about the company. And really important, because you don't want to get yourself into something that you don't feel comfortable or have issues working for that company. And it's really important to like what you're doing and feel comfortable. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you.
Great question.
Yeah. I think you can.
Great. So let me see. Okay, now we're in the second piece of career goals. So where do I want to be? So that's thinking, as I mentioned earlier, you have to kind of think about it in a couple of different ways. So one piece is short-term, your short-term goals, your long-term goals, qualifications, like what qualifications do you have or do you need? Compensation. And sometimes people don't feel comfortable talking about money, but you should learn to feel comfortable talking about money. And I'll just say that right now, and I'll repeat it a couple more times throughout this session, especially I think as Black people, we need to learn to be comfortable talking about money when it comes to looking at jobs, when it comes to negotiating. So we're going to talk about compensation. So let's start with the short-term and the long-term goals. And so a couple of ways that you can really set up and figure out your short-term and long-term goals is using the SMART method. So I know a couple of people may have seen this in the past, but so SMART is one of probably the best or most well-known ways to really start setting goals for yourself. So it has to be specific. And so you can't have just a general goal of, oh, I want to be a director in 10 years. And it's like, okay, now you have the time frame down, but it's not specific enough. Okay, you want to be a director of what? You want to be a director where? What kind of director do you want to be? Like, what does that actually really mean? It needs to be measurable. So how are you actually determining success? How are you measuring the success of whatever goal you're setting? And what does that look like? And are you okay with it kind of changing throughout time? Is it attainable? So attainable is a nice way of saying, is it a realistic goal? Or are you like shooting? I mean, there's nothing wrong with shooting for the moon. Like I would say, shoot as high as you can. But is this something that is truly attainable for where I'm at right now in my career, or for where I'm at right now in my life? And if it's not attainable now, this is when you then, jot it down. This doesn't mean get rid of that goal. It means jot it down and start to create a work back plan of like, okay, now how do I actually get there? Is it relevant? Is the goal relevant to the things that you're interested in? Is it relevant to the things that you value? Is it relevant to, you know, the jobs that you actually want to secure, or the things that you want to do in your life? Or is it just like a random goal that you have because you see someone else has it? And I'm going to say that again. Is it a random goal that you have, or is it something that you see someone else has and someone else wants? And so as humans, we do this thing of like comparing where we're at, where one person is at in their career and where another person is at in their career without knowing their full stories or really understanding how they got there. So take time to really, I don't know, someone's drawing on my slide. Usman, you're drawing on my slide. I don't know if you realize that. He probably doesn't realize it. But yeah, so that's the relevant piece. And then the time frame is really thinking about, okay, how long do I need to really accomplish this goal? And so is this goal for the next year? Is it for the next 6 months? Is this for the next 2 years? Is it for the next 5 years? Really setting a realistic time frame for yourself and revisiting that time frame, because maybe at one point you realize, oh, I'm actually moving faster than I thought. Now I can actually move my time frame back because it's not going to take me maybe 5-10 years as I thought. Maybe it's actually going to take me 3 years. And that's like a beautiful thing. So setting smart goals. And then the second piece of career planning is going there. And so this is why I mentioned, networking. So you have to network. Networking is really uncomfortable for, I think, a lot of people because we're not. Sometimes I think also your network feel you need to give them something in return. So, not because they're the same. It's not it should be a genuine relationship. It should be a connection. So definitely doing that. Here, I think someone may be off mute. Okay, it's gone now.
It's gone. Okay, good.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you good now. We didn't hear
okay.
the last.
Yeah, I think it was just breaking. So networking and I'll go over a couple ways of networking, but one of them is LinkedIn. So we'll spend some time talking about LinkedIn. Another way is just talking to people. So getting comfortable with sending random messages and random emails to people, asking them for 30 minutes of their time. You never know where that one conversation is going to take you. And I've actually seen that play out for me multiple ways in my career and in my life where, I had coffee with one person and it was like an hour coffee. And before I knew it, they were helping me to find a job. And then, they've stayed in my life ever since. And so there's a lot of things that can come out of networking, and it's just learning to be more comfortable with it. Next piece of how you're getting there is training and education. So what are the certificates you need? What are the degrees you need if that's important? Sometimes it's not required. Sometimes you don't need a specific education. You don't need a specific degree, but the more you can understand what are those things that you need, the better. Then is job experience. Are there certain requirements that are needed for me to get to where I want to be? So what are the jobs that I need to start thinking about having now so that I can get to where I want later? And I'll use a more clear example of that, of like, so I know for me in the future, like I do want to be an executive, whether at Microsoft or another company. I don't know. We'll see, like, God knows. But right, I know that's something that I'm really interested in. And so what that means is I've had to kind of step back and figure out, okay, in order to be an executive, what are the things that I need to work on in my career now, earlier in my career now, so that when the time comes, I'm ready. And so when the time comes, when people look at my resume and they look at all the work that I've done, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, she's at the right place to actually get this position. So start thinking big, start creating those plans to figure out how do you get to where you want. Connection with managers. So connection with manager means both connection with your current manager, so whoever your manager is, building a connection with them, but it's also future managers. So if you work at a large company or a nonprofit, education, wherever you work, hospital, it doesn't matter where you work. Make sure you're building a really, strong and positive relationship with your manager if possible. And this is and the preface to that is some managers suck. Like that's just the reality. Is sometimes you end up not having a great manager, and that's really hard to deal with. But for the most part, building a solid relationship with your manager. And then also if there's a manager that you see in a different org or in a different part of the company that you've heard really positive things about, set up time with that person. The role that I'm in now, I got because back in like December, I started sending random emails to everyone, not everyone, but like random emails to very specific people saying, hey, my name is Awa. I'm really interested in like a global experience. I heard you lead XYZ team. Is it possible for me to spend 30 minutes and just get to know a little bit more about you and to get to know a little bit more about your organization and the things that you do? And people were more than willing to spend time and chat with me. Sometimes it took 2 months before I talked to that one person, but it was still worth the wait. And I say it was worth the wait because I got the role that I'm in now. And the reason why I'm in New York is because I'm waiting to actually transition to France, inshallah. But it's a result of me building those connections early on. And even though it was uncomfortable, even though it was awkward, I knew that I had to get out of my head and get out of my own feelings and talk to those people because they were the only ones who were really going to help me get to where I wanted to go. Then finding mentors. And so finding a mentor is extremely important. And so your mentor, yes, can be your manager, but you should try to find someone who is not your manager. So I think it's important to have a couple of different mentors. So having a mentor at your company who works within your company, who's more of a senior level that you can talk to, then having a mentor who may be like 1 or 2 levels above you. And the reason why I say 1 or 2 levels above you is because they've already experienced what you're experiencing now. So they are closer to it and they can really help you think through how to navigate it. And I found that so helpful because they can give me advice on things that they had challenges with before so that I could approach it differently. And then the senior managers help me think more, like the senior folks who are mentors help me think more big picture of like, okay, Awa, you should be working on this, you should be working on that. So that's within your company. Also try to find a mentor who sits outside of your company. So the mentor who sits outside of your company will be someone who is gonna help kind of expand your network. And this is why the networking piece is important. And so that mentor may be a random person that, someone else that connected you with and you had a conversation and you were like, okay, like we vibe really well. I think this person would be a good person for me to stay in touch with. And then making sure you actually have like a cadence and a rhythm of talking to them. So with me, my mentors, I have some mentors who I talk to every other month. I have some mentors who I talk to every quarter. And so that's like every 3 to 4 months. I have other mentors who I talk to every 6 months. And the reason why is because I'm sharing different information with them and they're serving different purposes to help me think about different things. So really taking time to do that, I think is important. So then this thing is gonna drive me nuts. I don't know how to get rid of it. Okay, I can't get rid of it, but then we have performance and career conversations. So I'm gonna keep using the word awkward because I think most parts of talking about yourself and getting help on the things that you need to do better at can sometimes feel really uncomfortable. But again, we have to learn how to do it because that's the only way we're gonna get better. And that's the only way you're gonna know why you're performing at the level that you're performing in. And if you're not getting a promotion or if you're not advancing, if you don't have these conversations, you'll never know. So when you're having a performance and career conversations, the things that you should be talking about with your manager are, sorry, the window's open, are contributions and impact, right? So what are the things that are, have you contributed to your day-to-day job? What are the things that you've made really strong impact on within the team, within the organization, or different areas? And so what I do actually, and this is going to sound very type A, but it could be something as easy as like creating an Excel sheet. And again, I know this sounds crazy, but create an Excel sheet and track, like literally track the things that you're doing and the projects that you're working on. And in the tracker, you know, you'll have one row that says the name of the project, another row that'll say who are the people you worked with, and then the last row will be what were my accomplishments, what were the things that I did really well on that project. And so we're really forgetful as humans. Also, we do a lot of things and we don't do a good job of talking about those things. So if you have that tracker when it comes time to talking about your performance and time to talking about where you're at in your job with your manager, you'll have something ready that you can go back to and refer to, and you won't be sitting there trying to like wrap your brain around, okay, what was the last thing I did? Who did I work with? How did I really do on it? So take time to do that. When you're talking to your manager or whoever you're chatting with about your performance, ask them like, what could be done differently? What are the things that I need to be doing differently to improve? Sometimes you're gonna have a manager who's gonna be like, you're doing great, everything's great, you're wonderful, everything's great. That's nice, but you should push, because it's not about, you know, having your ego feel good. It's not about, you know, just doing good or doing great. It's about, okay, but what are the things that I can be doing differently? Are there specific things that I can do to learn more, to stretch myself and help out with? So find ways to really think about how do you improve instead of just great is good, but you want to move beyond great. Think about your key deliverables going forward. And so I do this about once a quarter with my manager of like, these are the top things that I'm going to be working on the next few months. This is where I need support. And this is what I'm hoping to accomplish. And so what that allows us to do is he can track, you know, where I'm at with those key deliverables, and he can also figure out how can he help me and support me throughout. And the last one is how will you learn and grow? And so learning and growing beyond just the job. So thinking about how are you going to learn and grow outside of your job? How are you going to learn and grow about things that aren't related to your job, but could really help move you forward and help advance who you are? So things that I've picked up that I'm like, I guess, learning a little bit more about is I've done a lot of like project management and program management stuff, but I've never taken like a formal like class, or have never taken like formal lessons on it. And so what I've been doing, and whatever free time I have, which isn't much, but what I do is, you know, LinkedIn Learning has free like digital skilling and like skilling opportunities. And you don't need to have a membership. All you need to do is have a LinkedIn account, and you can learn how to be a better project manager. You can learn how to brand yourself. You can learn how to synthesize data and storytell. There are so many resources online. And this is also like a plug because Microsoft owns LinkedIn, but we did this thing during COVID because people were stuck at home. And then a lot of people have also lost jobs, unfortunately, during COVID, of like, okay, for those who are at home, who don't have jobs right now, but still want to develop skills so that they can be ready, we have a bunch of resources on, I'm telling you, like so many different things. And I would encourage everyone to look at it. Even if you do have a job right now and you feel fine, go and see and look, are there things there that could help make you better, that can improve you and make you stand out a bit more for the next time you're ready for your next role. Then we have the mentorship piece. And so a couple of things I wanted to talk about with mentorship is there's this idea of mentorship, and then there's this idea of sponsorship. They're very different, even though they seem a bit similar. So a mentor can be anyone. And I've already kind of clarified like how I would break it down if I was you all. But a sponsor is actually someone who's at a senior level, who has a seat at the table. And when it comes to making decisions and helping to move things forward, they will actually be the person who will speak on your behalf. And I'm going to use, you know, my current job again as an example. My sponsor just happens to be the corporate vice president, and it just happens to be him because I was gutsy enough to send him a note and be like, hi, I'm Awa. Can I just take 30 minutes of your time to just learn about you and your organization? And again, it sounds very simple and it sounds very like, why would you do that? But again, everything about this is strategic. I didn't even think that I was gonna, connect with him or like he was gonna want to sponsor me. But we had such a great conversation. We very similar personality. He really understood what I was trying to get at in terms of where I want to be in my career. He had a really good idea of like the skill sets that I had and how I can apply it to different things. And so when it came to the job that I have now, he was at that table when they were deciding who was going to fill that role. And he was able to speak on my behalf to help me to get it. So this is why, again, it's so important to network. It's so important to start building connections with people and to start telling your story. And sometimes we shy away from telling our stories, but the more you tell your story, the more you tell your story in a way where it's not like, I'm not telling you my story for you to pity me. I'm telling you my story so you can see and understand the things that I've done in my life and how I've gotten to where I'm at now. Then mentors are there to like have discussions. So they'll help you talk about, think about your skills and your capabilities. Whereas your sponsor, again, will help you when it comes to promotions. They'll help you when it comes to building connections. So they can actually help you expand your network, as can your mentor. And they'll draw visibility towards you for when you're not at that level to be in those rooms. Mentors are helping you to kind of like craft and figure out what does your career vision look like. And then after you've kind of crafted that out, the sponsor is actually the one who's in the driver's seat, helping to move it along. Then you have the mentor who kind of just offer insight and they'll give you advice and tell you if something's good or not, or if you should think about things differently. And then the sponsor is your champion. So again, they're the ones advocating for you. They're the ones moving things forward for you. And so I would encourage everyone, regardless of, again, where you work, the things that I'm sharing is not specific to corporate America. Like you can apply this to any job that you have. You can even apply this, like if I think back to college, I could actually apply this mentorship and sponsorship piece to, the relationships I had with some of the faculty at my different schools, because they're the ones who can help me find jobs after graduation and find internships because they have the connections. And so this is something that goes for everyone. So then we have career moves. So when is the right time? This is always hard. Again, you can do it. I believe that's definitely one way of figuring out if something is the right time for you, if it's the right thing for you. Another thing is, breaking it down as like, is this practical versus is it ideal? Like, does this really make sense? Ultimately, like, does this make sense? Does it make sense for me to take this opportunity now? Does it make sense for me to make this move now? Or should I, stay for another 6 months and work on these skill sets and then go to the next thing? Do I have the right skill sets to really be successful? So the thing here with job requirements is you don't have to have 100% of the skill sets to be successful. Even if you have 30%, and everyone here is Black, white men, and I'm going to use, because this is actually proven in research, like white men will apply to jobs even if they meet like 25% to 30% of the qualifications, which means there's a list of 10 things they need to have to be able to get the job. They meet literally maybe the top 3 of them, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I can definitely do this, and they'll apply. We need to carry that same mindset forward of like, and again, this is going to sound whatever, but like, the thing I tell myself and that I remind myself of is, I know I'm not mediocre. I know I've worked hard to get to where I'm at, but if I even have the smallest confidence of like a mediocre white man, I could be so successful because all I have to do is look and say, oh my God, I meet 3 out of 10. I'm going to still apply and put myself out there, because I also truly believe the answer is no unless you try. The answer is no unless you ask. So if you don't put yourself out there, if you don't apply, how are they going to know you exist? How are they going to know that you potentially could fit this opportunity? And there are also a lot of hiring managers who are not looking for someone to come in and have 100% of the skills. There are a lot of hiring managers who will say, yes, I'm looking for all of these things, but I'm willing to take someone who's willing to learn and who's willing to grow, because that's important to them. So don't limit yourself. Make sure that you're looking and seeing and applying. Apply to everything and anything, as long as it's something that also you want to do. So don't just apply for the sake of applying. If you apply, make sure it's a job that you would actually want to do. If you know you're not interested in data, don't apply to any data jobs. Find, if you're interested more in communication, apply to the communication jobs. Find the things you're interested in, put your application out there. Job requirement in terms of location. So some jobs will require you to move, others won't. When I took the job at Microsoft, they required me to move to Seattle for the previous 2 years. You know, that meant I was going to be all the way on the West Coast, and I've lived out of New York before, so this wasn't the first time, but Seattle's far. It's far from New York. And so I had to decide, like, you know, can I do this temporarily and then see what's next? And it was a good decision. It worked out for me. And now, like, the international experience, I'm like, okay, I feel like this is also another good timing for me in terms of making the move and going on to the next thing. So really asking yourself, does the location matter? And if it matters, why does it matter? Is it going to be temporarily or is it going to be more permanent? And also keeping in mind, like, especially right now, everything's remote for the most part. So I think a lot of companies are going to start, I don't know if this is going to be the case, but I do believe a lot of companies are starting to rethink what it means to have people in the office, to really rethink what it means to have people in certain headquarters or locations. So I think this is actually the ideal time to be applying to roles, even if they're in locations that you may not be 100% interested in, because you never know, they may actually be a shift and they may ask you to just be remote. Available opportunities. Are you weighing all of your available opportunities? Or are you just taking one because it sounds nice and looks nice? So really making sure you take time to see what all is out there. So when it comes to career growth, a model for that, and again, jump in if anyone has questions, please. A model for that is we call it GROW. And so it stands for a couple of things, but the G is goals. So how are you setting your goals? I know we went over this again. And I'm gonna share the slide with Study so he can share it with everyone so folks can have it if they wanna revisit this, because it's a little wordy, and also it'll help you think about the questions you should be asking yourself. So thinking about your goals, thinking about your short-term, long-term goals, what do you wanna do in the future? Who do you wanna be? Why do you wanna do the work that you're interested in? Then R is reality. So what barriers exist? Like, are there certain things that you don't have? Are there certain barriers that you're going to have to go over to really get to where you need to be? And so that's thinking about the skills, that's thinking about your relevant experience. And so taking time to understand that. Then O is for options. What are your options? What are your options now? What are your options in the future? What have been your options in the past? And how did you weigh those options? And do you need to maybe rethink how you weigh those options? And then what are, who can help you in your network to really understand those options before you make your final decision. I know a lot of us tend to, and I think this is a huge part of like Senegalese culture, where we keep a lot of things to ourselves before we make certain decisions and certain moves, and I totally get that. But when it comes to your career, when it comes to, especially if you're in the US and you're working for an American company, and especially if you're working for corporate, you need to really learn how to get comfortable with sharing your goals with people, because you're not going to be able to do it on your own, and so you need to learn how to, obviously you don't need to share everything. Like, I'm still I'm a very private person. Like, I limit what I share, but I know that when it comes to certain things in my career, I have to share it with my manager. I have to share it with my skip level and my sponsors and my mentors, because they're the ones who are going to help me accomplish those things. And so this will also mean figuring out who is I call the folks like my trusted advisors. Like, who are my trusted advisors that I know I can go to and I trust them. And I know that regardless of where I'm at in my career, they're going to be the ones who are really going to help me make sense of the things that are happening. Then we have W, so way forward. So what do you need to do next? What do you need to stop doing? We don't ask ourselves that question of like, what do we need to stop doing? Sometimes we've been doing the same thing for years, and it may have worked before. That doesn't mean it's still going to work. So what are the things that you're doing now that you need to stop doing to help you move things forward? And then what support do you need? What does support actually look like and what does it mean? And I will say, I still have a very hard time answering that last question of like, what support do you need? Even to this day, like if a manager asks me that, like sometimes I don't know. I'm like, I actually really don't know what I need. And I think that's a fine answer to give to people also, because then they can ask you other questions to help you really dig a little bit deeper. And so when it comes to support that you need, maybe you need, you know, you maybe one of the things you need is you need to learn how to network better. Maybe you need to learn how to, work on your presentation skills, but really asking that question and making sure that you're building, again, trusted advisors who are going to help you. So before we jump to the next session of refining your resume, I'm going to pause real quick, drink some water. And if there are any questions on anything that we just covered, feel free to jump in. If there are comments as well, feel free to jump in as well.
All right, thank you. I think you really covered some good points, and I'm getting a lot of feedbacks on social media from people that are
Oh, that's
joining.
great.
Yeah, they
Oh, I
actually
forgot
share.
this is on YouTube as well.
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
It's some foundations.
that's great.
And people
Are
actually
there
watch.
any questions on there?
Uh, oh wait, let
If
me.
there are, I'm happy to answer some on there. And again, if for the folks who are on the Zoom, feel free to get off chat. And again, if you're not comfortable and you want to send me a private message, feel free to do that as well.
Yeah, stop saying it's great. It's good. Ask questions.
It's okay if you don't have questions also. That's totally fine. No pressure.
Yeah, the mentor thing I think is really important, and I would take myself as an example because, like you said, as Black people, we don't really talk about money and stuff like that. Well, having a mentor really helped me to really set my goals, see what I need to do and what I need to bring to my manager.
Yep.
Yeah, so when I went to my manager, I know what to talk about, and try to give him some goals too. Like this is what I need to accomplish. So if I do this and this and that, will I be able to get this and that? So those are some things that you need to talk about because the mentor is really a guide. Like in the past, I did not talk about money at all. I was just working and stuff. But after talking to him, a lot has changed, and I was able to get a lot from the company that I really needed but didn't know what to do. Because as Black people, we usually just work. We don't, we just work, get the money, and go. We don't really try to do anything. And I think it's really important to keep that in mind. I have a mentor. I don't have a sponsor, but I'll work on it.
Yeah, and the sponsor piece also, like that happens naturally. So typically with mentors, like you can ask someone to be your mentor, but with a sponsor, it works a little bit differently. You're not going to necessarily ask someone to be a sponsor. It's more so of later down the line, they'll ask, you may have a conversation with them and they'll mention that they're your sponsor. So like with one of my sponsors, he just happened to say it like at the end of one of our conversations. And he was just like, okay, like I know what your goals are. I know you want to get international experience. I know these are the things that you like and these are the things that you don't like. I'm going to do whatever I can in my power to help you get to that place. And so at that point, I knew that he was going to be in the background moving things forward. And so sometimes also what you'll realize is they'll start off as your mentor. And then as they progress in their career, or even just like as the relationship buds, they'll end up actually being your sponsor without you even knowing it. And sometimes we forget there are a lot of people in the background who are helping us and who are moving things forward for us that we're not even aware of. And I think that's also the beauty of it. It's like, having that gratitude and just being open to folks. So I see a question came in. When it comes to choosing a list of companies to apply, what process should we follow to come up with a list? Oh yeah, this is a good one. So what I did is I figured out, I'm gonna go back actually. Let me go back this way. Let's see, where is it? Okay. So let me actually go here. So a couple of ways that I decided, sorry about all the movements with the slides. Okay, so we'll start here. So a couple of ways that I would recommend people to kind of think about in terms of process for figuring out list of companies that are companies that you should think about or interested in applying is, first, again, you need to have like really strong self-awareness. It starts there. Like it really starts with what are your interests, what are your values, what are the skills that you have, what are the things that you prefer. So once you have that piece like down and you know what those things are that you're not gonna kind of move on, and those are the things that really help determine who you are, then that's when you start thinking about where do you want to be. So at this point, you have a couple of things that you can do, and these are this is one of the ways that I had done it when I started business school, and I was trying to decide, okay, what are the companies I'm interested in? What are the companies I'm going to apply to for internships and full time? And the things that I knew were important to me were three things. I knew culture was important, so the culture of the company, like how did the company treat the people? How did the company treat the function? Because I am in HR, I wanted to make sure whatever company I was going to work at, they saw HR as a strategic partner and not as just people who like fired and hired and recruited people, which is like not even my job, right? I wanted HR to be seen as a strategic partner. I wanted to be at a company that I knew would value who I am as a person and the things that I believe in and the things that are important to me in my life, especially like as a Black Muslim woman. And so I knew that had to be a part of like the cultural piece of it. The other part of culture was I wanted to be at a company that I knew would respect my boundaries. And you have to kind of determine what are those boundaries for you? What are the things that these are the things about who you are and what you believe in, and you're not going to move on them. And will the company respect that? And so once I had that, so that's culture. Then the other thing that I thought about was my goals. So those were my short-term and my long-term goals. Is this company going to allow me to actually truly meet these short and long-term goals when it comes to career and movement? And the way you know that is, and it takes a little bit of stalking, and a lot of this is work, but I promise you it pays off. Like hopefully I'm an example of it does pay off. It takes a lot of work at the beginning, but you know, inshallah, you put the effort in, everything works out well. And so with the short-term and long-term goals, it's looking at maybe a certain positions that you're interested in at the time being or in the future, and going on LinkedIn and going on the company's webpage on LinkedIn and seeing what are the different positions that they have that people are in, and then finding, and again, this is stalkerish, but finding a person who matches the things that you're interested in and looking at their career path within the company and seeing also like what are the things they've done, how long did it take for them to move from point A to point B, and it's going to look different also for everyone, but this will give you an idea. And another way to get that is also by talking to people in the company if you're able to build connections or network with them. The other thing that was important to me, so culture was one, short-term, long-term goals was another one. The other thing that I knew was important to me was, is this company gonna give me the opportunities to learn and to grow? And so there's a difference between having your short-term and long-term goals in terms of where you want to be in your career. You can get to different places in your career without learning and growing, right? You could just be checking the box and you're moving along, but learning opportunities is really important to me. Like I am a huge believer in education. I'm a huge believer in continuing to improve myself in whatever way possible. And so I knew I wanted to be at a company that also valued that. And then the last piece is money. Like I wanted to make sure I was going to get paid well because I have student loans from one of my grad schools. And so I knew that the overall package in terms of compensation was important. And again, some people will say it's not important, to each their own. For me, it is important because I want to build generational wealth. I want to be able to buy real estate here and in Senegal. I want to be able to, inshallah, like whenever I do have, I get married and I have kids or whatever, I want to be able to support them in a way. I also want to be able to give back to my community. And one of the ways you can give back is to earn more, right? Like I can donate more to the mosque that my dad and my mom go to here in New York because I'm making enough to actually have some sort of disposable income to be able to donate to the nonprofits and the religious organizations and, you know, the educational organizations that are important to me and that I value. And so compensation. And so compensation will come in a couple of different ways. And you can think about it overall like benefits. And so each company is different in terms of how their benefits are laid out. So some companies, your benefits may just be, you know, your health insurance, what your base salary is, and then your like 401k plan. So those are all really great things to also look at when it comes to what's important to you. And it's also information that you could find online. You can typically find a lot of that information online to understand, does the company match if I want to, you know, have a 401k, and how much do they match by? Do they match 8%, 50%, $100 per dollar until I hit a cap? Understanding that is important. My base salary, what is the base? How does that move throughout the years? Or am I going to be stuck at this base for 5 years, even though cost of living is going to go up, right? That's important. And then health insurance. Health is wealth. Like another thing I believe in, like taking care of your health, figuring out the things that are important about your health and making sure you're taking care of that. And so really look and see if that's important to you. What are the options that you have in that organization? And then some companies will also have things like stock. So like Microsoft, if it's a publicly traded company, they'll offer you stock, or they'll offer you a bonus at the end of the fiscal year. And so really taking time to learn and see what are all those things and and does it align, and is it going to help you feel fulfilled in that bucket? And also negotiate, like whatever. And I told my brother just graduated from college in May, and you know, he got a job, and it's with Fidelity, and it's like a leadership program. And typically a lot of those programs, they tell you can't negotiate. That doesn't mean you shouldn't negotiate. Just because they tell you can doesn't mean you shouldn't. You should at least try. And so even though he tried, like, you know, so I told him, like, try to negotiate at least 10% above whatever the base they're giving you is. Try to negotiate for a higher bonus. Try to negotiate for stock if that's something they're offering you. Whatever they're giving you, try to negotiate up, because all they can do is say is, actually, you know what, we do have an extra however much money, we can actually bring your base up. You'll be surprised. Or they'll tell you, this is actually, we can't move on this, but we can move on that. So when I negotiated Microsoft, I tried to negotiate base, even though I knew and people told me they're not going to move on base. I was like, whatever, like I'm going to still try. I tried to negotiate on base. They wouldn't move on base, but they moved on bonus and they moved on stock. And I was like, okay, cool, I'll take that. Now I can move on. And so be willing to negotiate and be willing to find a company that will allow you to negotiate, because you're worth actually more than a lot of them will pretend like you are. That was like a very long-winded answer to that question, but hopefully it was helpful. The second question, what major should you pursue to be able to work at Microsoft? It depends on what you want to do. Like, I studied Africana studies and French in college. Like, I'm not technical at all. I studied humanities. My parents were worried, you know, like, immigrant child studying French and like history, like, what are you going to do with your life? And so that's what I studied in college. I worked in education for about 6 years. And I worked in the education policy space for 6 years. And so I have a master's in education policy. And then, you know, I got my MBA. And I think like the MBA is what, well, I wouldn't even say just the MBA. I think it was a combination of the different educational opportunities that I had that actually helped me land the job that I have now, because I gained different skill sets. If you're interested in engineering, you obviously need to study engineering. So if that's something you're interested in, making sure that you're taking courses, whether it's at school or learning on your own, Microsoft actually is one of few companies that within the tech industry that we're not only looking at candidates who like went to college and studied engineering, we actually hire a lot of people who are self-taught engineers. and like taught themselves how to code and taught themselves how to do all of these really awesome things with technology, and were able to pass, there's like a technical test that they have to take before they get interviewed, and they're able to pass that. And so I would say, that's one thing. If you're interested in marketing, Microsoft has marketing, just like all of these tech companies. So if you're interested in tech in general, don't limit yourself to just technical skills. All of these companies have non-technical work as well. So marketing, they have communications, they have program manager roles, they have, HR, they have, social media folks. There's a range of different things. One of the things that we actually also have like a philanthropies team. And so those are a lot of the people who work in that philanthropies team actually used to work in nonprofits in the past and now work at the company and are still doing the same work, but on a different scale. And so I would say just do research and see what are the things that you're interested in, and going and looking and seeing what are the qualifications for those specific things. How should a person working in the corporate world approach launching a business with a limited amount of time outside of the work office? And is it worth downgrading your engagement in the corporate position? So I have a small business that I started. The thing is, I will say though, I started it in business school. So I started in my second year of business school. I was taking fewer classes because I was almost done with the things that I was working on for my degree. And so I was able to start it in business school. But I do know people who, work at Microsoft and other tech companies, and they're starting side projects and side businesses as well. I think the question you need to ask yourself, if that's something you're interested in, is, are you willing to put in the hours outside of the office to get it done? Like before this call, I was working on our website and working on looking at the data from our analytics from the last week and trying to set up gift cards and all this other stuff on our website. And so, and it's Sunday, right? Like, and I've been doing that. I started working on that stuff around 2:00 until like 6, and then got ready for this call. And so I think it's more so of, are you willing to put the time and the energy and maybe lose a little bit of sleep at the beginning as you're getting things up and running to make it work? And I will say there's a benefit of having a stable salary and then having a side business or launching a business on the side, because you can actually use your salary in a sense to help launch that business and to help fund the beginning pieces of it until it is profitable, which is really hard to do. Which is really, really hard to do when you don't, have that early on. And so, and especially like we know that it's harder for Black people to get funding for businesses as well. And so that's the other thing to think about. And I wouldn't say, I think in terms of like downgrading your engagement in the corporate position, like that's like something you have to ask yourself. Like one thing that I shared with my business partner, and she knows, is that I'm not willing to quit my full-time position at Microsoft to take on just the business fully, because I really want to develop a career out at the company while also running my business. Whereas she's in a different place where she's like ready to quit her day job and just do the business full time. And so if you do have a business partner, I think it's helpful to be able to balance that out. But that's more of like a personal question you have to ask yourself of like, where do you see yourself? What are the things that you value in terms of your career, in terms of your growth, and what are the things you have to compromise on? Because a lot of it is compromising. Hopefully that was helpful, Mustafa.
Yeah, thank you. I think we can stop taking question for a second, just
okay.
to move.
Yeah, so let me move us forward. And then I did see the engineering question for the 5th grader. So there are a bunch of nonprofits for Black boys and girls to help get us to do more coding. And so I would say, I can't remember the specific name of one of them, but that's where you would start. So look for nonprofits that have free like boot camps. Microsoft, I think sometimes offers, Google also has some free boot camps for engineering for kids who are in like elementary, middle school, and high school. But there are a lot of free resources to start with if you're interested in learning engineering. And I'm actually really happy to see that you're interested in that, Abdullah, because I think we need more Black folks in engineering. So that's great. All right, so we're gonna jump to refining your resume. So I'll share an example of mine when we get to it, but when it comes to the resume, your resume should have the following section. So it'll have a header, which will have your name, your email address, your current city, and your LinkedIn page. And some people put their phone numbers on there too. That's totally optional. That's up to you. If you're not checking your email often and you're better with your phone, then I would say put your phone number in there. But for the most part, most jobs will not just be randomly calling you. They'll be emailing you. So just making sure whatever email address you have up there, it's one that's up to date, because I cannot tell you the amount of people who, like, some even like my close friends who would be like, oh my God, I forgot I applied to this job and I haven't checked my email in like a month. And then I went and checked and I missed an interview opportunity because I don't check that email often. So whatever email address you check, make sure it's one that's in your phone or it's in your kind of save that you check often. And then the other thing is making sure you're checking your spam and junk, because a lot of like recruiter emails actually sometimes tend to go to your junk or your spam box. Then you'll have your education. So you'll have a list of all your degrees. If you have any relevant certification, you could list them there, scholarships as well. So when it comes to education, you can do this a couple of ways. You can either have your education on the top right under your header, or you can have it at the end of your resume. And I'll show mine and explain why mine is at the end of my resume. Then you have your professional experience. And with that, you'll have your title, your employer, and your city and the city that it's located in. And then you'll typically have anywhere from 2 to 3, sometimes 4 bullets under each one, detailing the impact and the results of the job that you did. And if you have numbers and like percentages to show where that impact is, the better. Then you'll have like your skills, your interests, and additional. So this is like, you're part of, what organizations and nonprofits are you a part of? What languages do you speak? What fellowships have you gotten before? You could also put your scholarship and relevant certification there as well. So this is a little small, so what I'll do is share this. Can everyone still see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And so this is just an example of mine where, I have my name on the top and I have it in all caps and bolded, so and a little bit bigger than everything else. I have my number, email, and then a link, my LinkedIn page, so that whoever gets this can automatically go and look at my LinkedIn. On the top, I have, instead of having my education first, because I'm at a certain point in my career where people don't, like, they care, but they really don't care. Where I went to school, they're more interested in what can you do and can you do it well and can it help advance the company? And so that's why I have my core competencies first. And so you can call this a couple of different things. You can call it your skills, you can call it capabilities. I call them my core competencies. And so I have a list of the things that I know I do really well that I can do in a number of different jobs. And so all of these are different things that can be transferable to other jobs that I can take in the future. And the thing is also, a lot of the words that I'm using here are words that that you will actually find in a lot of job descriptions. So as you're thinking about your skills and making a list of it on your resume, look at a job description and see what they have listed there. And obviously making sure it's relevant to you, but using those same words and language, because usually a lot of companies, especially now, they use algorithms and typically machine learning and a bunch of different software to go through resumes. So they may not actually be looking through your resume in the same way, like one by one, as they used to in the past. So if you have these keywords that can be found in your resume that are also found in the job description, that can help a ton. So then I have my professional experience. And so I have, my current role. I update my resume like every 4 to 6 months. And the reason I do that is because even though I'm not looking for a job, I always want to be ready. So I would recommend updating your resume every 4 to 6 months, and it'll have your relevant work experience and all of that. And also, even if you're not looking for a job, a recruiter may reach out to you. You should always have the conversation, because even if you're not ready to move, it doesn't hurt to build your network. And so I have my current position there, and a couple of bullet points on some of the things that I do. And then I have my other roles that I've held. And so as you can see, I have, Microsoft. I did a rotation program, so I have it split up a little bit, but the roles that I did in that, and I always have the dates under, and as well as the location, and everything is lined up really well and consistent. So you want to make sure if one thing is italics, make sure it's italics for all of them. If it's bolded, make sure it's bolded. If it's lowercase, make sure it's lowercase. So making sure things look organized and neat. So this looks very clean and easy to read. Then I have, a couple of more work experience. So I have my company, I have a couple of other places that I've worked in the past. And then down here, I have my additional section. And so this is a list of things that I'm involved in, and organizations that I participate in. And then I have my education on the bottom. So I actually don't have my certificates and all of that on my resume. I have them in my LinkedIn though. And the reason why I don't have them on my resume is because I wanted to keep it to 2 pages. I don't want to go over 2 pages for mine. Depending on how many years of work experience you have or what work you've done in the past, most people, I would say, typically try to keep their resume to 1 page. But again, I've been working since 2011, technically, probably a little before that. But I graduated college in 2011. I've held a lot of different roles. And so for me, 2 pages is actually it's actually good, because it allows me to talk about all the things that I've done. And so lots of different ways to organize. Microsoft Word's actually, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to advertise for Microsoft, but Microsoft Word actually has resume templates that you can use. So if you don't know where to start or how to organize yours, there are a bunch of templates that you can use right on Word that'll allow you to do it. And then I believe online also you can find some. So wanted to share that. And then what I wanted to do, if there aren't any questions on that, is I'm going to jump into LinkedIn, and then I'll show you all a couple of things on LinkedIn.
That's good questions about the resume.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Question.
So at what point should you stop having your education first? I noticed you talked about yours not having
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So at what point should stop having education first on your resume?
Yeah, so I moved my education to the bottom last year. So 2019 was when I started moving it to the bottom. And so I would say it's a personal decision. I think as you think about your skills and your capabilities and the impact that you're making in your work, if you have enough of that in your core competency section and in your professional experience, you can start moving your education to the end of your page, because what you want the recruiter and the person looking at your resume to focus on is your skills and your capabilities, not just the degrees you have, right? It's cool I have these degrees, but the degrees don't necessarily tell you what I'm good at and what I'm capable of doing in a day-to-day job. And so that's why I would say kind of think about shifting to having it at the bottom, because you want the focus to be on hey, look at all the skills and the things that I'm really good at, and look at my job description that actually tells you that I'm good at all these things. And then, yeah, I got these cool degrees, but that doesn't define the things that I've done and the things that I'm capable of doing. So on average, I would say most people start moving it to the bottom, typically anywhere around 6 to 8 years after undergrad, depending on your work experience and the things that you've done. The thing to keep in mind, though, is if you're in academia, you'll most likely have your education up front because you work in academia. And so your education is important for that. Not to say that it's not for other things, but for academia, you may actually have it up front and then have your professional experience and then publish work and things like that later on. Great question.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it. So the other one is, I know there are a lot of college students on the line, and sometimes they tend to have some high school stuff on their resume.
Yeah.
So when do they need to stop that, or what kind of stuff should they keep
Yeah.
in their college resumes?
Yeah. So let's see. So I know I'm sorry to answer it again with it depends, but if there are, I mean, as you can tell, I have nothing here from any job that I did in college. It's just not on my resume anymore. And so I think I started removing those things in 2013, like 2, 3 years after, because the two jobs that I had after college at Barnard and at the Fay School, these bullets actually used to be longer, and those two actually used to take up a full page. And so I didn't, and the things that I did in college, if they weren't relevant to the work that I was doing and the work that I wanted to do, there's no point in having that space be taken in especially if your resume is one page. That's extra space that you can use to expand and give more detail on the work that you're doing now, and actually like place emphasis on that. And so I would say if there are anywhere from 3 to 5 years after college, you should start removing your like undergrad jobs and stuff from your resume. Again, unless it is extremely relevant to the work that you're doing now. But I will say for most of us, it's usually not relevant. And maybe it's like volunteer stuff, which you can go ahead and keep. But again, typically after 5 years, you can remove that.
Yeah, all right, thank you. I think we can move on to LinkedIn now. One question I'll just shoot right now is how to have your how to know your LinkedIn page to put it on the resume.
That's yep. So when it comes to LinkedIn, a couple of things that you should make sure you have is have a professional photo. So I notice a lot of people don't have pictures on their LinkedIn. So making sure you get a headshot or you have something professional on your actual LinkedIn is extremely important. And so choose a professional photo. You can actually take it on your iPhone now if you have a white background or a solid color background, making sure you have if you're a girl, simple makeup, nothing extra. Just subtle makeup if you're putting makeup on before you do take your picture, but you want to kind of look as natural as possible. So if you wear a hijab, wear your hijab on your photo. I've actually gotten this question from a lot of Muslim women who wear hijabs. If that is who you are and that's what you wear your hijab on your LinkedIn photo, because when you go in person for the interview or do a video interview, they're going to see it anyways. So do not shy away from having it. Like, if you're comfortable enough wearing the hijab, you should be comfortable enough having it on your LinkedIn photo. If you're not there yet, I'm happy to have a conversation with you on why you should do it, because it is a part of your identity. It is a part of who you are. And so like my LinkedIn photo right now, I think I have braids because I usually don't wear wigs and like straight hair. I usually have braids. But that's who I am. I tend to have braids a lot. And so that's the picture that I have on my LinkedIn. If you're a guy, if you have dreads or if you have longer hair, whatever, like just make sure it looks like who you are. You don't want people to be surprised. Formulate a strong headline. I'll walk through that, but we'll tell you how to all do that. Fill out the about section, edit your profile URL. I'll show you all how to do that. Fill out all the sections of your profile. Do not be lazy. Stay active. So this is something that I'm telling people to do, but I need to do a better job at. But try to stay as active as you can on LinkedIn, whether it's your liking post. I do a good job at liking posts. So if someone posts something, I'll like it or I'll reshare once in a while. But I don't tend to create a lot of posts. I think the last time I created a post was like the beginning of June. Maybe actually it was after actually. So I like sharing stories about other people, but I don't do a good job of like sharing my own story. So like my sister is a contact tracer. And so whenever she does stuff and like I get the article, I actually post it and I tag her. And so I'm like placing emphasis on her, which is great because then she can reshare it. But then it doesn't really say much about me, right? I'm not a contact tracer. I don't work in public health. Like, cool, like I'm posting this because it's important, but what does that say about my brand and the work that I do? And then being mindful about your network. So don't just add anyone. And if you're earlier in your career, you may not have this experience right now, but as you move up in your career and you get more roles and things like that, you will get random people adding you on LinkedIn. I think I have about like 200 plus invites that are just sitting because I don't know any of those people. And the reason why I'm not adding them is because either they didn't send a personal message explaining how they found me and why they wanted to connect with me, or I have no connections with them at all. Like, it's not like they're Senegalese or part of like a Muslim organization I'm a part of, or like joined like a call that I led. So if all of you were to add me, I'll actually accept you because I'm like, cool, you know, I did this thing. I know where you're coming from. But the reason why also is because there are a lot of people on LinkedIn who once, like if you approve them, they actually start to tap into your network to the point where it can be annoying to your network. And so just being mindful of that as well. So, especially, I think it happens more so with a lot of international folks, like who are outside of the US, they'll add you because they're selling things or what have you. So let me go to my LinkedIn. This is actually a previous version. I think I've updated it recently. So give me 1 second. Let me just, oh, I think it's loading. Hopefully and let me just get out of these things. Okay, so everyone should be able to see it still, but I think it might still be loading. Okay, and then let me answer this question from Noge. For an undergrad student that doesn't have a lot of real work experience, what relevant points do you think they could put emphasis on, put some upfront in the, okay. So if you are undergrad, first, I mean, the thing I'll say is everything that you're doing is relevant and real work experience. I think it's about how you talk about it. So you have to, the first thing you should do is kind of switch your mindset of like thinking about it as not real work. A lot of the things that I did in undergrad actually helped me really be successful in my first job out of college. So whether it's, you know, if you're a leader in an organization on campus, that is leadership skills you can talk about. If you planned any event or any type of thing within college, you can talk about that because that's event planning. That's, you know how to organize people, you know how to meet the needs of people, you know what the people, not just what they need, but how to coordinate and get people together to build a community. If you worked in the dining hall, you have to learn how to deal with people. You learn how to deal with different personalities. You learn how to figure out what are the things that how to operationalize. And again, we're making it sound fancy, right? You learn how to operationalize things in the sense that you're figuring out how do I make these things work and flow together. And so, so I would say like switch your mindset first and not thinking about it as not real work experience to looking at it as, okay, what are the things that I've done? What are the relevant work experiences that I've had? And how can they actually be connected to a job outside of college? And everything can. And so can your educational experience also. Like all these papers you're writing, all these tests you're studying for, all these presentations you're giving, those are all skills that you're working on that can be applied to a real job. And so just thinking about them as transferable skills and applying it to that, I think is one way of doing that. So hopefully that's helpful. I'm happy to go deeper into that. And if I didn't answer your question properly, just send me a ping or a message if that's the case. So when it comes to LinkedIn, I guess the first thing that I'll cover, let me make sure I cover all of them, is so I have my, my header. So first, here's my professional photo. So I have this picture that, represents me. I feel very well. And then I have a nice background also. You don't have to have a background. So usually LinkedIn has like the regular, it's like blue. But if there's something about you or about something that you believe in, you can put that here as well. So I know a lot of folks at the company put like the Microsoft logo or something like that there. And I used to actually have that at one point, but then I was like, oh, I want to be more like not tied to the company. So if a recruiter was to reach out, they can see like, I'm open. Even though again, I'm not looking, but just making sure it's set up like that. And then I have my header. So your header, so I'm gonna just click this button, which is to edit your profile. So when you click that, and I'm gonna do it again right now. So when you click the pencil, when you go to your page, they have a new feature where you can do an audio recording of your voice, which I actually did, so that if, you know, especially I think for most of us where people have a hard time pronouncing our names, I do have that. So you can go ahead and actually use that new feature. But my headline, all it says is I'm a program manager at Microsoft and I'm a co-founder at Nakawa Beauty. So it doesn't go into details. Some people, what their header says is it'll just list out, it'll say something like, HR professional invested in people, or marketer who, product marketer, or it'll say communications and public affairs. So it'll sometimes be very quick, but it's not too much detail. I haven't updated it to my new position yet. I plan to in like the next month. I have this thing where I usually wait about 3 months after I start a role and then change it on LinkedIn. Don't ask me why. I was told by a mentor to consider doing that. And so I just kind of do that now. But I have, because I have 2 current roles, the one that I want on top is my Microsoft one, but I also have my Nakawa one if I want it. But I have that. And then I don't have my education showing, but if that's something that you want to have, you can actually have your education show on your intro. And then if you have different degrees, you can kind of select which degrees you want to show. Then I have my, you know, where I'm located and all of that. And so on the bottom, as you can see where it says contact info, this is where you can change your profile URL. So you'll have your profile URL. If you have any websites or phone, email, anything that you want to share, you can do that. I don't use Twitter, so I don't have that. So I'm just going to click this so I can show you all. But at this point, so now it'll show you what my profile URL is. The website that I do have is my Nakawa website for my company. And then I have my email address. It has like the Nakawa Twitter and then my birthday. But my birthday, I don't want it to be visible to everyone because I don't see, LinkedIn isn't a social network for me. So I don't need people to know it's my birthday and wishing me a happy birthday. So I actually have that hidden. And so right now, so you have your profile URL. This is for when, if you forget what it is. So let me show you how to actually change it. Hopefully I can remember. I always have a hard time. Let's see. I always forget how to do it. Give me a second. See. Now we're here. Always. Nope. Always do this. I think I did this in the last session too, where I thought I remembered and then, oh, here it is. I don't know how I missed it. So it's sometimes it's on the right where it'll say edit public profile and URL. So when you click that, it'll actually take you to a whole nother link and it'll show your public. I think there's another way to get there. I'll figure it out, but you can then edit your custom URL. So right now I just have in my first initial last name, which my dad wasn't happy about because he actually has the same, so he's Ajo as well, but I got it before him. And so, you know, once you make it, it's yours and no one else can have it. So, you know, so then could be like S Senate, but I feel like someone probably already has that. So he may have to like just put his full name and that's fine. But edit your URL profile, make it something easy and something related to your name. Like this isn't an Instagram handle. So just keep it professional as well. And when you're actually at this setting, you can change if you're, oh, okay, this is the other way to do it. Actually, it is in your settings. So yes, okay, here's the actual other way to do it now that I remembered. So when you go, once this loads and you're on LinkedIn, sorry, my computer's a little slow. And you click where your little picture is, you click the me, then you go to settings and privacy. And then it says edit your public profile, then you'll click change. And this is when it'll take you to this page. And then that's how you can get to editing your URL. And then if you're what's actually visible on your page and what's private. And so my page is public. I have it open because I want people to be able to see my LinkedIn and to be able to connect with me. So it's public to everyone. So even if someone was to search my name, they can actually see everything. Whereas you can make it where it's only visible to LinkedIn members or to first degree connections. It's up to you on how you want to share that. And then you can also pick and choose what are the things that you want to show, that you want people to be able to take a look at once they do have access to your LinkedIn. And so that's how you change your URL. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the About section. And so the About section, I'm just going to go back, because there are a couple of sections that you need to make sure you're filling out on your LinkedIn. And one of them is the About, which you don't have to, but I would encourage everyone to do it. And so the About section actually is just typically a couple of sentences that describe your skills and capabilities and who you are and what you're passionate about. So I talk, a little bit about what my core competencies are, and then that I'm passionate about natural skincare and hair care products and advocating creating a value chain. And so those are the things that I have in my About. And so figure out what's important to you and have that there. As you can see here, I congratulate people a lot on LinkedIn when they get like new roles and things like that. So making sure you're doing that. And then as I was mentioning earlier, like I post stuff about my sister. I'm a proud big sister. So I post a lot of stuff about like my younger sister. And so then you can see a list of all my activities. I have about 2,200 followers. So the followers aren't necessarily your LinkedIn connections. Those are just people. You can follow someone's page without being connected to them. So there are some people who I follow, but I'm not connected to. So like, typically it's like CVPs and like people in higher, more senior levels. I'm not gonna connect with them because I don't know them, but I wanna follow their page and see what they're posting and things like that. And so as you can see, I have all of my jobs. I don't have descriptions under each of them, and that's pretty intentional for me. But other people do. You can choose to write like a sentence or two sentences under each of your thing. You can have more as well. Some people, their LinkedIn actually looks like their resume. So they just copied and paste whatever's on their resume onto there. So you can do that if you choose. Then your education is listed. And the cool thing about LinkedIn is you can actually share articles. So if you have different articles about you or that have been posted or published, you can put that on here. So I have that as well. And then whatever license and certifications you have, I actually need to remove this because it's expired. And then whatever nonprofits you're a part of, you can put there. And then your skills. And so I have my skills where it's visible, but you can't see if people like rated them, which is an option that you have. I would actually recommend against having the ratings show because it just doesn't look very impressive, to be honest, seeing like, oh, okay, cool, you're good at data analysis, but only 2 people gave you a check for that. So I would actually have it set up like this. And so you go to edit under skills, you can just kind of add the different skills that you have there. And you can add in skills that aren't there either. And then accomplishments, so awards, organizations, and then languages I have there as well. And then all the companies that I follow. So I follow Microsoft and then I follow a bunch of different companies and journals and things like that. Any questions about LinkedIn? I know that was a bit quick and I know we're also over time.
Yeah, I think there's one.
Yeah.
The chat.
So yeah, so this is what I was hitting at. So it's up to you if you want to have it detailed or not. I would honestly recommend stepping away from like doing a copy and paste from your resume to your LinkedIn. Instead, like if you have a bunch of bullet points under the different job descriptions, actually taking a look and kind of summarizing some of those into like maybe 2 sentences and having that under your LinkedIn for that job. I think that's easier for people to consume if they're looking at your resume instead of going, sorry, if they're looking at your LinkedIn instead of going and seeing like 4 bullet points under each job that you've held.
Yeah, I think you covered anything that I could
I think there's someone, I think there's one coming.
Yes, a comment. They say,
Oh, okay, just a comment. Okay.
yeah. And I know there are some parents watching with their kids. So
Oh, okay.
the question I
Okay.
wanted to ask you is, what age should they start having LinkedIn?
Oh, okay. Yeah. What age? I would say high school. Like so I'm going to use my brother as an example. So he's, oh my God, he's 22 now, but he started his LinkedIn, I would say his like junior, senior year of college. I would actually say junior year. The reason why is because colleges are actually now starting to look at LinkedIn. So, and usually you'll start kind of doing research and stuff about colleges your sophomore, junior year. And so I would say your junior year, you can start having a LinkedIn and updating it. And you won't have like job experience. You'll have like internships and you might actually have job experience actually, but you'll be able to put that on your LinkedIn. And if you do like, if you get awards and if you do like science fairs and things like that, you can actually start putting that on your LinkedIn. So I would say starting junior year, definitely the beginning of your junior year. So I would say, how old is that? Like 15? I don't know how old you are when you're a junior anymore, but I think 15, 16, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
How do you tailor a resume based on the job you're applying to? So I have 2 different versions of my resume. One that has a list of all of the jobs I've ever held, and one that is more tailored to HR. And so the one that's tailored to HR is specific to the function in the industry that I'm in now. And so I would say have one resume that usually you're not going to share with anyone, but what it does, it acts almost like an inventory in a database where you can dump every single job you've ever had and descriptions for every single one of them. And then when there's a specific job you're applying to, all you have to do is copy and paste certain jobs and descriptions into the new resume. And so in terms of tailoring it to a job you're applying to, you should be tailoring it to the industry and function that you're applying to. So if you're a software engineer, having it be relatable to software engineer. If you're comms, communications, having it related to that. And then another way that I would say I've tailored mine to kind of where it's at now is I looked at job descriptions. And I did this at the beginning of business school before I got into HR, was I looked at job descriptions of different functions of HR that I knew I was interested in. And based on those job descriptions and the language that was used there, I went back and looked at my resume. So you kind of have like these 2 windows. You have the job description, you have your resume. And what I did was I went back and I edited my resume, keeping it relevant and like true to the things that I did, but I made sure the language and the way that I framed things were very well connected to how I know someone in HR would want them to be. Again, a lot of work, but it's worth it.
Yeah, thank you. One last question. This is about applying for jobs, especially for college students. And when is the right time to apply for jobs or internship?
If you're a college student, you should be applying to internships your freshman year. Like try to have an internship that freshman summer. So between your first and second year, if possible. I know it's really hard. It's actually the hardest time to get an internship is between your first and second summer. And so even if you can't get an internship, you can have a job. Like the summer between my first and second year of college, I worked at a restaurant that summer, but it was something that kept me busy, helped me make some money so I can pay for some books and stuff when school started. And then it also gave me skills that I can then talk about when I applied to the internships that I ended up doing the summers after. And so I would say start as soon as you can. All schools, and I'm not going to say most because all schools have career services. So take advantage of your career service in your college because they'll really help you to figure out what are the things that you need in terms of experience. And then they'll also have a list of internships that you can apply to and apply to as many things as possible. Typically your first year and your second year of college, you're still figuring out what you're interested in, unless you're like very much on a track. And at that point, your career services can help give you different options so you can test out different things. And also, what you end up interning in college doesn't mean you're going to end up doing that after college. Like my brother's in finance now. He didn't do anything related to finance when he was in college. Like he didn't even study finance. And so be open, try new things, experience different things, and just be willing to look at different opportunities, even if it's something you've never tried before.
Thank you. Yeah, let me just ask this follow-up question. So, during the school year, when is the right time to apply for internship and jobs? Because I know usually people tend to wait until after like December or January of that school year, and it's probably better to do it earlier.
Yeah. It depends on the role, but if you're interested in tech, usually the roles get posted about now, actually. So August, September, October is when those roles are posted and when interviews start to happen. So if you're interested in specific industries and um, specific functions, you need to actually really know when do those companies and when do those industries start to post jobs, because if you miss the boat, you miss the boat, and then you have to wait a whole nother year. And so tech, I'm telling you now, if you're interested in tech and you're in college, they tend to post the roles end of August, early September. So I know Microsoft, for instance, like all the internships for next summer, they're already posted and they're starting to interview. I think Google is a little bit later than us, but they should have started posting theirs as well. And the same thing with Facebook and like Twitter and all these other companies.
Yeah, I know a lot of people make that mistake. That's why I wanted you to talk about it a little bit because people tend,
Yeah.
and if you wait, you will have to wait another year, like you said. I think
Yeah.
two questions in the chat, and then we can wrap up if you don't have anything else.
Yeah. So let's see. Your link. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much of a chance your LinkedIn page could get a company's attention? It depends on how active you are. And because a lot of recruiters are actually using, so LinkedIn has this thing called LinkedIn Recruiter. And so what it does is it allows recruiters to actually go and look at profiles without you knowing they're looking at your profile. So there'll be some times where you'll see like, oh, a recruiter looked at your page, but there are a lot of times where recruiters are putting in different searches. So there's like a search box within, and the reason I noticed is because I did recruiting for one of my rotations and we use LinkedIn Recruiter to like source and look for candidates. But when you go on LinkedIn Recruiter, they'll type in whether it's like program manager or they're typing marketing and they'll have different filters that it has. So they'll have filters for location, for education level, for skill sets, for years out of college. They'll have all these different filters there. And then they'll put certain keywords in the search and then all of the profiles will pop up. So the more your profile is like up to date and detailed and you have all of these different boxes filled out, the better, because then your chances of showing up higher in those searches actually happen. So in a scale of 1 to 10, depending on the company, it could easily be a 10, but it could also be a 1 if the company doesn't use LinkedIn and they use other searching tools like ZipRecruiter and all these other ones that exist. Or if it's a company that just looks at people's resumes and doesn't use LinkedIn. And then the second question, in this pandemic situation, what's a good strategy to stand out among other candidates? I think the best strategy right now is, especially like and I don't know your situation, but if you're working or not working, one of the best ways to stand out is to build on different skill sets and capabilities that are in certain jobs that you're interested in. And as I mentioned earlier, LinkedIn Learning has a lot of different ways you can do that for free. But the more you can strengthen those skills and get these different trainings in, the more you'll stand out. And then also another thing that people shy away from doing is sometimes reaching out to recruiters if you're connected with them. Some recruiters don't like it, so I will say that depending on the company. I know Microsoft, they hate it because we're such a big company and there are a lot of people applying. But if you're applying for like a smaller size company with like fewer people than we have like over 160,000 employees, right? So it's a massive scale that we're hiring at. But if you're applying to like a startup or a smaller company, reach out to the recruiter, reach out to the manager on LinkedIn if you see them that they posted something, and just send a message saying you're interested. And on LinkedIn, you can actually attach your resume when you're sending messages. So you can attach your resume. So ultimately shoot your shot, right? Like do what you have to do to put yourself out there. And sometimes it means being, some people will call it aggressive, but I call it being strategic. And so it's being strategic and putting yourself in front of them.
All right, let's see.
Okay, and then there was one more, talked about a lot about in terms of networking. What is one big advice you would give to your younger self about making connections with mentors and people in general? I think the big advice I would give myself, and it's something that I'm still working on, is sustaining relationships with mentors. Because a lot of times you start to build relationships with people and then you move on to your next job or you move on to your next, stage in your life, and you don't follow up with those people and like tell them where you're at and how you're doing. And so one thing that I want to do a better job of, and that I wish I had done earlier with a lot of network mentors that I had early on, is I wish I had done like every 6 months or once a year, sending them an email and just like saying, hey, just checking in, happy holidays. And the holidays is actually the best time to do it. Happy holidays. Hope you're doing well as you're going into the holiday season. Just wanted to give you a quick update on where I'm at right now. Would love to just jump on a call and then do like a 30-minute conversation with them. So sustaining those relationships is something that I would have done. And then the other thing that I would have done also is there were a bunch of people who I think would have been great mentors, but I was too nervous or shy to like, or timid to ask them to be my mentors when I should have just asked, And so if there's someone that you find, like their career path is interesting or you could really learn from them, just reach out and ask. Like it never hurts to just like ask, and it might be like a call that you have with them once a year. So definitely do that.
All right. Can we talk about a little bit about TechGuild, and you can
Yeah. Sure. Do you want me to do that?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So TechGuild is a let me exit out of here if it'll let me. So TechGuild is a nonprofit that we see if it'll let me. I got a new laptop, so it's
okay.
Let's see if my other one crashed last week. So cool, perfect. So TechGuild, if everyone can still see my screen, is an organization we started. I guess we launched in like March. And so right now there are a little bit over 150 people who are part of the network. And we use this app called Mobilize to really stay connected and stay grounded. And we host a bunch of different events throughout the year. And so we've held a couple of different sessions. So I did this one back in May. We've had one on race and like the criminal justice system. We had one on personal finance and building generational wealth. And we have a couple more that are coming down the pipeline in the next couple of months or so. But ultimately, it's built for Senegalese American professionals who are just trying to find other people who look like us and who've experienced being Senegalese American and finding ways to just stay connected and to network. And we use the platform for a couple of different reasons. So both for hosting sessions, but we also have it so that people can crowdsource information. Like if they are trying to work on a project, they can use it for that. People have also been using it to post jobs. Like if their companies are hiring, they use TechGuild to post jobs and things like that. But it's an awesome network. It's still fairly new. We were not even a year yet. But again, we've only been around, I guess, now almost 6 months. And are just really looking to grow it and to have a network where Senegalese Americans can feel empowered, can feel connected, and we could all like really work together ultimately to improve each other's careers. And we have people from all walks of life and different careers in it. So we have folks who are chefs, we have folks who are, pilots, we have people like myself who work in corporate, we have folks in nonprofit, we have doctors in there, nurses. And so it's a really awesome network. So if any of you are interested and are starting your educational career, so right now we have like minimum of usually like 2 to 3 years of work experience, but apply. I think we're also thinking about expanding to like Tech Hill Junior. So we're working on figuring out how we can do that to make sure we're staying connected to the younger Senegalese American community as well. So check out the website and take a look, learn a bit more. We're also on Instagram, so you can find us on Instagram. The handle is at techhill.usa. We don't post that much, but again, follow us.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that's really interesting. And that's, as I mentioned in the beginning, that's where I knew about you. So it's a great platform to know what Senegalese people are doing out there. And I see how great our people are doing. And as we talked about networking, it's a great tool to network with your people. Yeah. And yeah, it's free to join. And when you join and sign in, you will receive email about updates, about events. They recently have the Grand Place and stuff like that. So yeah, it's really, I encourage each one of you to join that, inshallah. And yeah, so if you don't have anything else, I guess we can wrap up. We are over time now. Sorry about that.
No worries. We started a little late. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn again. I'm happy to answer questions on there also if you think of other stuff. But yeah, I hope this was helpful and you all got some gems or learnings from it.
Yeah, we really did. A lot of thank yous, and yeah, we really appreciate it. We appreciate your time, and yeah, so much again. And once I get the presentation, I'll be able to share it with everyone in the group. Yeah, so thank you so much. Thank you so much again. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Everyone.
Take care.
Okay, bye.
I'll send you the video setting. It stopped recording, so
okay, please.
Hopefully it stayed properly.
Okay, yeah,
and I'll probably put it on Drive, on Google Drive, and then I'll share the link. I think that might be the best way.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Have a good night, everyone.
You too. Thank you.